I'm Phil Magel, the Senior Research Coordinator at the AIR-P. Now we are in breakout room B, community-based lifestyle interventions. And I'm so grateful to Dr. Derek Nord for serving as faculty facilitator during this presentation. Dr. Derek Nord is from the University of Indiana. He's the director at Indiana Institute on Disability and then Community. Dr. Derek will lead us to this presentation. It's all yours now, Dr. Derek Nord.
Right, hi everybody, welcome. Just looking at the time, it is 3:06. Why don't we get started in the order that we have this on the agenda? I will follow up with, I have some questions prepared. I believe each of the presenters also have some questions potentially for the audience. And then I want to make sure that there's ample time for you all as well. So I'm going to hand it off to the first presenter, Ida Barresi.
Yes.
There we go, excellent. And I'll just hand it to you and let you run with it.
Okay, so should I tell you on the next slide? Want
Yes.
to move to the next slide? Okay, wonderful. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Ida Barresi. I am very excited to be here to talk to you about our feeding therapy program in children with autism spectrum disorder and feeding problems. Next slide, please. These are my colleagues. Thank you. Next slide. Not addressing, so we do know that feeding is quite prevalent in children with special needs, and especially with children with autism. And the unfortunate part is that there are not many programs available. Next slide, please. So not addressing these feeding challenges impacts physical health, including dental, nutrition intake, because many children with autism do have specific food preferences that don't meet their nutritional requirements, and as a result, suffer from malnutrition. Next slide, please. These are some of the characteristics of feeding in children with autism. Some of the children in our program are children whose diet consists of less than 5 foods, who are taking about 6 to 8 bottles of Pediasure to supplement their diets. We also see children who have significant oral aversion or food refusal and are required for G-tube placement so they do not starve. Next slide, please. Our feeding program is multidisciplinary, it is child-focused, it is parent-focused. It is not a rigid, vigorous intervention. It is medically indicated because our goal is to feed our kids as safely and as optimally as possible while providing adequate nutrition, as well as fostering a positive mealtime experience. Next slide, please. Our goal is to describe and examine the feasibility of this intervention. Next slide, please. These are the areas that we address. As you can see, parent education is at the top of the list because we do emphasize parent-clinician collaboration. Next slide, please. We have enrolled 5 patients so far with good attendance. We noted improvement in goals developed by the therapist. Next slide, please. We're excited to learn more about our intervention as the study continues. Thank you.
All right, well, nice job. It's 2 minutes is a tough time to knock this all out.
I tried.
So I'm gonna recommend everyone also take the time to, I know that the videos are, the longer videos, there's a link on the agenda. So if you haven't already, please go back and review those. They're fantastic. Maybe just from just a couple questions, maybe to get us started. We have about 9 minutes for a Q&A, and this is open to everybody. But I'd like to just start with some. I know that this project is just starting, and you have a handful of subjects already in your study. In this early stage, are you finding any particular practices or aspects of this intervention that are better or well received, more better received, worse received by the child?
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay. So you want to take yard waste?
Whoever is there, can you please mute your line? Thank you. All right. So back to the question. Any particular practices of the intervention or aspects that are more well received or less received by the child undergoing the intervention?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go both by the child and by the caregiver as well. So with the caregiver, one of the emphasis was on parent training and parent education. Number one, we do need to validate our parents' feelings because this is a very stressful time. Because one of the things they want to do is feed their children. They don't want their children to starve to death, and they truly believe that. As regards to the children, you know, each goal is individualized depending on the needs of the child. So they are accustomed to eating in their familiar home environment. Sometimes when they come here, we have to help them to adapt to the changes in that environment. So what has served us very well is, you know, trying to employ some structure, establishing a routine, something where it's a little bit predictable and not really placing so many demands from the onset so that we can kind of better assess and identify their feeding issues.
Thank you. And another question, going back to the caregiver, the family member or members that are involved as well. Can you speak to the roles and responsibilities, since this is outpatient? What are the roles and responsibilities of the family members? What are you seeing their roles and responsibilities outside of the outpatient moment? So as to kind of further this intervention, what roles do they have?
Well, their immediate role is I have to care for my child. I don't want my kid to starve to death. And so we really need to really talk to them about their child and understanding their child's feeding challenges and coming up with some realistic goals. So we may not have your son or daughter eat a new food in the next 3 or 4 sessions, but we can make some subtle changes that are going to be accepted by the child. So in terms of the carryover, you know, it's not all about introducing a new food. A lot of our kids have some oral motor weaknesses, some oral hypersensitivity. So what we try to do is show them different strategies that can be implemented in the routine, but that doesn't disrupt the routine. It's almost like a way of squeezing it in where the child's not really noticing, oh my God, mommy's doing something completely different. Trying to incorporate that and try to go from there.
Great. Thank you. Do you have any questions that you want to pose to the audience?
Oh, me, myself?
Yes.
Well, you know, early identification is crucial. We do see a lot of our, you know, I always get information from the very beginning. I always want to see the course of feeding from birth to the present time. And if parents or caregivers are concerned from the get-go, please refer, validate their feelings, and not just because they're new parents, but there may be some concern that they have and they can require the support. So the early referral would be wonderful.
Great. And I'm gonna open it up to others in the room here. We have a few more minutes, 4 more minutes on this particular presentation. Does anyone have questions they want to pose?
Sorry.
That's okay. I hear my colleagues.
The whole group is here, just in the background. My name's Andrea. I've worked with Ida on this project. I see there is a question about the mean age of children in our project. I should have had it in front of me, but I don't. It's on our poster. I believe it's around 6 years
5 or
old.
6.
Like 6.35, something around there. And we do tend younger. A lot of the families get referred to us because they are leaning towards failure to thrive or are failure to thrive because of the malnutrition. So we do tend to catch them on the younger end. So that is about where our project is now, but we are still enrolling children and families.
And we're up to like 8.
Yes, we're up to 8. So 3 more actually just started
Yes.
in the past week or so. But we're slowly adding more based off like what Ida has the availability for.
Yes.
I'm just seeing another question here. Can you describe what your inclusion-exclusion criteria were?
So inclusion, exclusion, in terms of the criteria, did you want to answer that, Rosario? Yeah, just to give everybody a
I
chance
think we
to.
are a clinic. This is a clinic setting, and we are doing a research project. But the clinic, I mean, who comes to the feeding clinic? I think Ida can answer. Any child that has a feeding disorder, and we are only reporting children who have autism spectrum disorder. Ida also sees patients who have intellectual disabilities or global developmental delays of some sort. It's not just exclusively for autism, but what we are presenting is the results of children with autism. These are the inclusion.
Thank you.
And we have, Ida developed the goals, and then we are looking after 12 weeks of intervention. What are the responses in each goal based on the performance rubric? We are also using a standardized questionnaire, initial questionnaire, and after the intervention is over, the PDEs, and we are seeing their results.
What we're finding with the screening, because we're doing a lot of parent education, parents understand the questions better. So when we do a pre and post, they're rating performance, but they're not really sure what the question is really asking. And so sometimes when we do the post, the scores may be even higher. Like, wait a minute, we know that they've made progress, but we, actually noticing that they're understanding what they're looking for. So that really makes us feel happy that we've done a good job with really helping them understanding, educating them.
Great. Any last questions?
Here's one about, I see in the chat, there's one that says, have you noticed improvements across other areas, in particular, flexibility and compliance with your intervention? Do you want to talk to that? Or?
Oh, one of the things that I like to include is oral hygiene. I think dental hygiene is extremely important. A lot of our kids gravitate to purees, more convenient foods, easy to manage. And what's neglected a lot is adequate oral hygiene. And since we've incorporated that into our intervention program, we are finding more acceptance to more tolerating of food. Also at the dentist, we don't have that documented yet just by word of mouth, but we also have a special needs dental clinic here. And several of our kids who've gone through our program have been pretty receptive to examining the oral cavity. So we're excited about that part. So we've seen some changes there.
Great, thank you very much for the presentation and the participation of your colleagues. Nice. I'm going to hand it off to the next presenter here. We're going to shift gears, and I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Renee Jameson. And I believe she's here.
Yes, I am.
There we are.
Yeah.
All right, I'll hand it off to you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, hello, I am Renee Jameson from the University of Kansas Medical Center and director of our Kansas LIND program. My focus today is on girls with autism who often experience a greater social impairment and increased risk for anxiety and depression within adolescence, a time when social norms and expectations become more complex. Gnoteen, the first component of our broader program and focus of today's presentation, is a manualized social skills and self-care program for adolescent girls with autism that incorporates evidence-based strategies to enhance social communication and emotional health and to mitigate symptoms of anxiety and depression. I launched GNO in 2008 to address the disparity in services for girls with autism and this elevated risk for internalizing symptoms. Thank you. A few things that makes our GNO program unique. Program and curriculum is designed specifically to address the unique needs of autistic girls and young women as outlined in the literature, our own research that informed program development and revisions, and of course our girls and families to ensure buy-in and relevance. This includes a focus on, I'll tell you, this includes a focus on self-concept and self-care skills. The intervention program is peer-mediated and delivered within community settings and not in our clinic. And during activities that allow for authentic practice across social and self-care skills, multiple people, settings, and activities. Community participation improves outcomes for children and adolescents with disabilities across various domains, including physical and mental health. We focus on strengths and individualize based on participant interests, goals, and needs to create opportunities for success. Next slide, please. A combination from our Gnoteen skills groups suggests a combination sample that girls completing the intervention demonstrated significant improvements in social competence, self-worth, and perceived quality of life, and a decrease in anxiety and depression as seen on this graph with a reduction in those symptoms. Sample quote from a participant, quote, "These girls' nights keep getting better and better, reflect meaningful outcomes for these girls." And parents' quotes reflect connecting with other families with similar interests or similar concerns and a lack of programs for girls. I think that's my time, so I'll
All right, nicely done. That's the first test, right? Getting it done in the time. So maybe I'll just start with some questions, and again, I'll open it up to open up the floor here when I'm done with these. Just regarding the intervention, can you just describe what are some of the biggest challenges that you found you face in implementing this intervention?
I would say that we are out in the community, and we usually have between 8 to 10 girls in our skills group. And so it does take some, bodies in terms of facilitators, where we use our LIN trainees as well as, having a lead. And so that's one of the, I think, biggest barriers, is that it really does take several people to be involved. Sometimes we have challenges just, being in community-based settings and kind of with the other people that are around, or girls with varying interests. But I really think that's part of, one of the most meaningful things in our program, is that we get girls to go out and do things they don't always do on a regular basis, and also work with community partners. Sometimes it's us doing something within a setting, but sometimes we recruit community partners based on their areas of expertise to provide instruction or work with our girls. And so I feel like that we are building capacity, not just within the girls we work with, but also the peers in our program, and then also the community partners that we make.
Thanks. And a follow-up here. I think it's very obvious for anyone who's heard your presentation that this is a very much needed intervention, and just an important need for the population. I'm curious, are there plans to scale this up so it's more widely available? And if so, what are the plans? And how, I guess, in other words, how can others who are interested get their hands on this intervention?
Sure. So I mentioned this was like the initial component and like the focus of today. So GNO Skills is a manualized program, and we offer GNO certified facilitators for our GNO Skills Group, or Teen Skills Group program. And so on our website, which I can throw in the chat after I'm done talking, there are opportunities for people to come and do the training at KU in Kansas City, where we're at, and then we provide ongoing consultation during your first group, so that you can say you're a certified provider. That is, in the last couple of years, we've really tried to make that effort to disseminate the program. We also, I mentioned 2008, it's been slow going over time, but we have the skills groups for our teens are one element we have, which then grew into P&O, or Parents Night Out, because our parents wanted to do, connect with each other. Then we have community events. So our program includes, monthly or even more than that, opportunities for girls who are either waiting to do our program or have already completed our program to get together and continue social opportunities. And then we also have, started GNO Junior, so to, decreasing the age range. Really, our goal around our research and around our program is to expand and to provide supports across development at those key areas, so that we can, prevent, or at least get ahead of those times when we are seeing, really increased difficulties for our girls, or elevated risk for mental health symptoms, and change that trajectory to decrease those things. And so we are, trying to disseminate this, both building it within our community, but then people can get on our website and sign up for the training. Would love to do that.
Great, thank you. And I'm looking at the chat. There's a question in here around community partners. Can you expound on what that is, who they are, what the roles are, and the various aspects of what makes up a community partner?
Absolutely. So I said that we are social and self-care skills. So sometimes a community partner, like we have a goal setting session that's around, identifying what's important to the girls, and we interview people ahead of time, and we interview the girls and the families, and we provide them feedback. So we just might be at a restaurant doing that. So it's like eating out, we incorporate eating out, ordering money, but then also during this goal setting session. And so a community partner might just be going to a restaurant, talking to, saying, hey, we're going to spend 2 hours here instead of an hour. We're going to take up more space, and tell them about our group, and then working with the server to say, make sure you're talking to our girls, here's what we're working on. And so it could be as small as like just, a 20-minute consultation with that server, and really engaging with that person. 2, we go to Paul Mitchell, the school, which is a hair care cosmetology school, and they are providing some instruction with our girls and working on some hair care skills. And so we do a more, lengthy training, 30 minutes or 45 minutes around working on what supports girls might need or how to work things, or really around the practice component. So it could be someone, fitness instructor, where they're delivering some their expertise. We combine that with our expertise in developmental disability with like a content expertise, and then, how we can build in those practice elements. So it really varies, but I think this is something that we haven't studied as much, because we probably had over 500 different people from the last, 12 years that have come through and received some element of partnerships and training with us.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? And then I'm going to pose it to you as well. Do you have any questions for the audience? You have a couple minutes that you would love to get answered.
Yeah, I guess I would just love to hear, I feel like, we have over 200 girls in our bank of people. Not everyone has been through our program, because we have our own set of kind of issues trying to get everyone served, but, around what others feel like our needs. For us, it's mental health, and getting girls connected so that they can reach their goals above and beyond kind of like today. But if anyone else has questions or like, things that come up for them in terms of barriers or successes.
And I'll open that up to anybody who wants to jump in. But as I always do, I would say employment and transition, I think, is both relevant for this group, this age group, as well as just a historical marginalization of that group in employment. It might be a good avenue as well to have some of those conversations. Anyone else have any thoughts? If not, I see we have a minute left. I'm gonna ask maybe just another question, because I find this intriguing. Can you talk a little bit about is the curriculum entirely community-based, or is there any segment of it in a class environment? It's hard to get all of the details in these quick presentations.
I know, yeah. So the Gnoteen curriculum is like, we have core areas, and then we have a set of like strategies and supports that we use to teach and practice those. Yes, it's all community-based. We have a lot of support materials that go along with it in different ways that we deliver that content. But yes, and then the other elements, we have some like key parts of our programming: in the moment, in vivo feedback paired with token reinforcement, bucks you can spend the Geno score, but it's that in the moment practice about what's going well, use of differential attention. So that piece is embedded throughout everything. But that's something I've always really protected in terms of like, we've had barriers with our health system and billing, because I want to do it out more meaningful, like socially valid settings, so that we can get that in the moment feedback practice.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And I will just point you to the chat there. Somebody from Arkansas had put in a barrier just around rural states, and the question here, and though we don't have the time, do you have the same problem of trying to get info out to rural areas? So I'm going to let you take that, maybe
Sure.
Answer that on the side. We're going to shift gears here and move to the next presenter, Dr. Shaida Rayleigh. I'm going to hand it off to you and let you run with it.
All right, thank you so much. Is there any way that I can turn on my video?
I believe you can turn on video.
Yeah, you can turn on your video.
It says the host stopped it.
Really?
It let me, Shaida, once I tried again.
Success. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share during this AIR-P Research Day. My name is Shaida Rayleigh. I'm from the University of Kansas, and specifically our UCED in our state, the KU Center on Developmental Disabilities. I'm very happy to share a bit about the Self-Advocacy and Goal Attainment Project, or the SAGA project. Before I get started, I do want to acknowledge my co-researchers and the team on this project. So the first person, which I'm not sure if his video is on yet, is Ben Edwards. Ben Edwards is my co-researcher on this project, so we implement this together. And then we also have our wonderful Jennifer Bumble, who's on the call. She is a researcher here at KUCDD. Thanks, Ben. Good to see you. And then Ryan Henley, who is another research aide on our project. So the SAGA project is really focused on implementing a community-based self-determination intervention to really enhance goal setting and attainment for goals that could be targeting employment, post-secondary education, community participation, as well as physical health outcomes. So this is an AIR-P Scholars project that was funded for this year. So we're a little bit like before the time that we can share findings with you because we're just kind of getting it going this year, but we're very excited to share a bit. So this project will involve using an evidence-based practice to promote self-determination, the self-determined learning model of instruction, or the SDLMI. The SDLMI is an evidence-based practice in transition, but the novelty of this project is that we're using it in community-based settings. So we're using it to work with and in partnership with autistic adolescents to really set and work towards goals that they identify as important in their lives. And then part of the feasibility of this pilot project is also looking at the impact on some key areas. So self-determination, which will use self and family report measures, executive processes, including measures of inhibitory control and behavioral flexibility, health self-report measures of physical and mental health, and then post-school outcomes. So post-secondary education and employment. This graphic here just shows you the three phases of the SDLMI. So in the first phase, adolescents are really answering the overall question, what is my goal? And they go through a systematic process to answer that question. Then they go through the process of identifying what's my plan to achieve my goal. And then in phase 3, which I would argue is the part of the SDLMI that you don't see as much in goal setting and attainment interventions, is then the person really self-evaluating and self-regulating and answering the question, what have I learned? So did I learn that this was the right goal for me? Do I want to change my goal? Do I want to change my action plan? And they're doing all of that with the support from a facilitator. And this project, Ben, Jen, and Ryan will be our facilitators, and they're amazing. And then they're also doing that within a group. So they get to learn from other autistic adolescents who are setting and working towards goals. In this project, the adolescents will be ages 16 to 21. If you'd like any more information about the SAGA project, because I could keep going on and on, but I know that I can't, so we can get to questions, please feel free to email us at sagaproject@ku.edu. And then if you're interested to learn more about the self-determined learning model of instruction, you can go to our website here, self-determination.org, or follow us on social media. But I'm very happy to take any questions and do that in collaboration with the SAGA project team.
Great, thank you, and nicely done. Can you describe what's been adapted for this application? How has this intervention been adapted?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for the opportunity. So the SDLMI has been used in a variety of settings. It's highly flexible, but one of the things that it has been used extensively in certain settings is in school-based settings. So a lot of times the facilitator would be the teacher, working with students with and without disabilities, hopefully in inclusive context. That should be what we're doing, and supporting them to work towards goals that are important in their lives. In community-based settings, though, that structure of school isn't necessarily already there. The teacher might not have all those the facilitator might not have all those interactions that a teacher does. So some of the things that we have been doing in preparation of starting off the SAGA project is really supporting the facilitator and having an opportunity to learn about what the adolescent is interested in. What are and even just some things like, what are their communication preferences? What are the ways that they want to share, that they want to engage, or that they want to take a moment to listen? And what are some of the things that really support them? So that's one key thing that we've done. And then also kind of use our small group to really utilize to have different ways for people to interact. So sometimes we might have like a whole group discussion with 5 people, maybe just people doing think, pair, share. Maybe writing down their ideas and putting them up on Padlet, so then it's more anonymous with people sharing their ideas, so it's not one person on the spot. So we're sort of exploring the different ways that we can utilize this community-based model to really support people and sharing their goals and their action plans, but doing that in a comfortable way that works for them.
Thank you. And there's a question in the chat here asking if you can expound on the family reports measures you mentioned.
Oh, sure. So the two family report measures that we're using, so one is related to self-determination. That one is the self-determination inventory parent-teacher report. And Jen so helpfully put our website in the chat. So if you're interested in checking out what the self-determination inventory parent-teacher report looks like, you can certainly go take that. It takes about 10 minutes and anybody can take it as a one-time use. So it's a validated assessment to measure self-determination. For the family measures related to executive processes, we're using the Brief 2 parent report. And then finally, for the physical and mental health, we're using the PROMIS battery of measures.
Great. And then I'm going to ask another question that I had, and that is, based on where you are for the study, which is, it sounds like you're just starting to implement, can you just describe what you envision as some of the biggest barriers you're going to face in implementing this?
Sure, yeah. So obviously one of the biggest barriers is getting people together. Some of these people are going to be in school. They're 16 to 21 years old. They might be in school for a full day. And so they're coming back from a school day and then engaging in an STLMI session for an hour and a half. So us being very aware of participants' preferences, their support needs, their needs for breaks, kind of changing up the structure is really important to us. So that's one thing that we have really on our minds to keep an eye out for. I think the other part too that we're in right now, very currently being highly aware of, is people's preferences related to meeting in groups in person or having the groups meet virtually. So I think right now we're trying to build some flexibility that we can sort of use a hybrid approach to really empower everybody to connect in the ways that they really want to.
Great. And there's another question here. Do you have any feedback from those who are currently in the self-determination study?
In terms of people who are participants? Hey, Michael, good to see you, by the way. Yeah. So right now we're just recruiting people for the project. So right now we don't have any feedback yet, but thanks for that prompt because you gave me an opportunity to share a little bit about the great work that Ben is doing. So as a part of this project, we also have an autistic advisory board. So this board will get together once a month and we'll share with them kind of how the project is going, what people are saying, what are some of the barriers that we've experienced and some of the solutions we've used. So they can sort of guide us and really ensure that we're using an approach that would be consistent with the autistic community and their values. So that's one of our attempts to not only get that feedback, but then also implement changes as we go along. So then hopefully from this AIR-P Scholars project, then we can lead that to a larger scale project afterwards. Thanks for the question.
And I'll throw it to you. Do you have any questions that you would have for the audience?
Yeah, I guess one of the questions that we're not really sure yet until we get started is, so using the STLMI, we're really going to empower adolescents to set goals in a variety of areas that they find important, right? Which, as I mentioned, could be employment, post-secondary education, community participation, physical health. What kinds of goals in the communities that you work in and the spaces that you're in do you think would be most valuable to participants? And then when we come back and present this at the next AIR-P Research Day, we can share with you what some of those goals covered.
So
write those in the chat.
Yeah, if you can write those in the chat, that would be fantastic and I think helpful for them. In the meantime, somebody did write in another question here. Is this project geared to English only speakers or do you offer services in other languages?
Yeah, great question, Ida. Thanks for asking. This project, this very small Saga project, is focused on students who are primarily English speakers. However, the STLMI certainly could be used with people that come from diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds. And if you'd like to chat more about that, I'd be very happy to talk after this and think through some possibilities. And same thing with you, Michael, about the self-advocacy network development in Kansas or in Arkansas. Really happy to talk about that and what STLMI has looked like here and how we can work together. Yeah, I'd be very happy to put my email in the chat if you'd like to get in touch. And that goes for everybody else in the Saga project team, that if you get in touch, then one of us will definitely get in touch with you.
Excellent, thank
Thanks,
you.
Jen.
Oops. And that's my timer. So I think we're going to move on unless there's any last things you want to mention to anybody.
No, just thank you everybody for the opportunity. And again, I know we only had a short amount of time, but this work is not by me as a sole presenter. It is really a collaboration with Ben, our co-researcher, Jen, and Brian too. So thank you again for the opportunity to present about the Saga project.
All right, nice job. Next is Sahana Shankar, who I'm just going to hand it off to.
Hi, sorry, I'm trying to start my video, but it is saying that I can't start it because the host stopped it. So, oh, there we go. Now I got it. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Sahana. I'm a third-year medical student at the University of Miami Miller School of Medicine. And today I'm really excited to share with you our project, a community needs assessment survey of medical needs for adults with IDDD and or complex medical conditions. This project was led by a team of self-advocates and physicians with the goal of developing a clinic that would best reflect the needs of our community. So next slide.
Second, sorry, here we go.
So we had a total of 82 responses with 96% of people saying they would benefit from such a clinic. Next slide. When asked what interest they had across specialties, there was strong interest across many specialties, but the highest interest in internal medicine or a primary care physician. Next slide. We were also interested in telehealth because we were developing this clinic during the pandemic. So we found that 80% of people were interested in telehealth and 98% would be able to attend a telehealth appointment. So considering technology barriers and things like that. Next slide. We wanted to compare in-person versus telehealth as well. And there is a slight preference for in-person appointments. Next slide. And the primary reason for an in-person preference is people really value having a physical examination done in person. Next slide, please. And then for telehealth preference, the biggest reason was long wait times in clinic. Next slide. And we also wanted to find out what kind of infrastructure we needed to build for the clinic. So we asked about transportation, and 77% of people said they would not need transportation provided to attend in-person appointments. Next slide. And majority of people did say that they would attend their appointment with a caregiver or a loved one. Next slide. And we wanted to find out the structure of appointments. So did people prefer to come and do everything in one day, or do they want their appointments on different days? And there was a slight preference to have everything done in one appointment in one day. And then we wanted to find out about the importance of having care in one health system versus being able to see their preferred provider, even if they're in different health systems. So here in Miami, we have many different health systems. So we just wanted to kind of elicit that from the community. Next slide. Regarding disabilities and chronic conditions identified on the survey, autism spectrum disorder was the largest number of respondents identified that as their disability or chronic condition, with 37 respondents saying that. Next slide, please. And we provided a free response space so people could answer exactly what an ideal clinic looks like. So you can see here, they want a team approach, they want people who are well-trained to interact with people with disabilities, a comfortable, quiet, safe environment. Next slide. And we can leave this here. This is just kind of the big takeaways that we just went over. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, nice job. I'll start with the first question. You know, needs assessments provide a lot of data. I'm just curious from your team, what were some of the most surprising findings? I mean, there's findings that you presented, but did any step out as kind of as being particularly surprising considering your work and what you all thought you were doing?
Yeah, a priority to us based off of this data was care coordination and the presence of social work. So we had a variety of medical specialists, but we also had different forms of therapy, social work, care coordination, and that really jumped to the top of the list right after primary care. So we implemented that as we actually very recently opened the clinic, which is very exciting. And we have implemented a social work intake as a big part of our process. So, and with that care coordination.
That's great. And then just kind of along the same lines, as a needs assessment, the idea is to use it, and you've described ways that this is being integrated into decision making. What are some of the biggest decisions or changes that have kind of emerged from these data or the conversations that are being had?
Yeah, so the telehealth questions, we were trying to figure out if this could be largely a telehealth clinic, and especially, like I said, it was developed during the pandemic. But in-person appointments are important, but so based on that data, that people do slightly prefer an in-person appointment, and specifically for physical examination. So the thought process is to have 1 to 2 in-person appointments throughout the year for annual physicals, where the physical examination is particularly important, but more interim check-ins can be telehealth, so you can kind of marry both needs. So many of the questions were slight, like they weren't unanimous one way or the other. So we've tried to take that into our model by developing a balanced approach for those things.
That's great. Thank you. I'm going to open it up to others. And do you have any questions that you want to pose to the audience?
Sure, I'll give everyone the opportunity, but if not, I would love to hear if anyone has seen such a model implemented at their local community or anything like that, because transition is very important and can result in adverse health outcomes when there isn't kind of a set support system. So I'm just curious if any of you have experience with other models or similar models.
And as people are, I would say recommend people to put that in your chat if you have anything to contribute there. I think just looking here, is there anything in your needs assessment that was not feasible to actually do?
Yeah, so the question about seeing a preferred provider versus all care being in one health system. So we're part of one health system, and given the strong preference and desire for care coordination, it made sense to make that the priority. So to have everything in one health system. So essentially our model is we've created a medical home with a primary care physician, and then we have a referral network of providers. But our referral network is largely within our system. If people do, one of our patients, we had the situation where they prefer to stay with their provider. So patients can facilitate that on their own, like they can still see their preferred provider, but the referral network that we've created is within our system. And that seems to be the best thing for care coordination, because we can attend multiple appointments with the way the EMR is and all of that. It just makes the most sense to have that all within one system.
Nice job. I'm sure everyone got the alert that the breakout rooms will close in 1 minute. So I think maybe with that, how about this? Are there any plans for follow-up post-pandemic?
Yeah, this is we're collecting data and learning as we go. So we're had a soft launch, and we're hoping to get feedback along the way and adjust as the community says. That's nothing about us without us, right? So in the spirit of that, we really want to be led by the community.
Fantastic. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to all the presenters. And wow, we just snuck in under the wire here. So nicely done, all of you. Back to the main room.